Alright, hey everybody. Hey there. Hey there. It's Rex. I'm gonna just dive into today's lesson immediately, because I believe today's lesson is we're finally getting into the boxes. We're finally approaching the boxes. Hey Juan. And that's a little bit of hype, you know? Oops, it isn't. See if we can resize this just a tad. Okay. Let's see what's up, man.
I'd initially figured I'd approach this video as it handled the previous ones, as one big lecture. As I wrote out the script, however, I quickly found that it was just going to end up being far too long.
Oh, feeling tired.
While that in and of itself isn't a huge problem, considering how dense the topic is, I'll be breaking it up across multiple videos instead. Our goal is simple. We're going to introduce the concept of perspective.
Okay.
We're going to talk about what perspective is, not as this daunting, looming villain, but as a tool that can be used to help us achieve specific goals. But before we get to all of that, Drawabox is not a perspective course. Drawabox is a course that focuses on developing your internal, instinctual understanding of 3D space and how the things we draw exist in 3 dimensions, despite being made up of lines and shapes on a flat page. Perspective is one of the tools we use to achieve that, but it is important to remember that it is just that, a tool. If you are looking for a structured course that delves into all of the technical elements and maths involved in linear perspective, I'd recommend looking at Eric Olson's A Complete Guide to Perspective for Artists, from our sponsor, New Masters Academy. It is very thorough and will patiently guide you through the most basic principles all the way to the most advanced techniques that can be used to create complex scenes, confident that they will line up with reality. So, boxes. Why are we so obsessed with boxes? Well, we're trying to learn to think in 3D, and a box is a perfect representation of those 3 dimensions. That is to say, it gives us 3 sets of edges that are parallel to one another in 3D space, each one perpendicular to one another, which matches the relationship of the different dimensions of space. If you've studied any 3D geometry, 3D modeling, or physics, you'll have heard these 3 dimensions represented as X, Y, and Z. Though I find in drawing it can be easier to initially discuss them as width, height, and depth, all relative to the viewer looking out into the scene. Just so we're on the same page on that front, I'll define what I mean by each one very briefly. Width is the dimension that runs horizontally perpendicular to the viewer. So you can think of this as aligning to the line on which our own eyes sit, since they span horizontally across our face. Height is the dimension that runs vertically perpendicular to the viewer, so the line that the viewer's nose follows. And lastly, depth is the dimension that moves towards and away from us in parallel to the direction we're actually looking. I often refer to this direction as the viewer's angle of sight. While the only real difference between 3D and 2D is the presence of the depth dimension, it's a pretty big difference. It takes us from looking at some flat lines and shapes on a page and understanding that to be all that is being represented, to viewing that piece of paper as a window that looks out onto a limitless world of depth. The goal is ultimately to take something that exists on a flat surface in 2 dimensions and make it create the illusion that it in fact exists in 3 dimensions. This act is referred to as projection, where we're taking something with a higher order of dimensions and projecting it down onto something with fewer. There are many different kinds of projection that are used to capture 3-dimensional objects on a 2-dimensional page, and each one is geared towards a different set of needs. Perspective projection is the one we'll be focusing on in this course, and it has one concrete goal: to reproduce human binocular vision. That is, what things tend to look like when seen with 2 eyes arranged in the fashion you'd find on a human face. Perspective is all about reproducing what humans see. Orthographic projection focuses just on the view of an object from one of a few possible sides.
Yeah, that's what I'm used to from like
eliminates the third
engineering
dimension,
programs and
though
stuff.
this is often made up for by presenting multiple views of the object, like a side view, a top view, a front view, separately across multiple images. This is sometimes referred to as a plan view because it really helps us to understand the object as we plan to draw, model, or otherwise interact with something three-dimensional. Lastly, isometric projection attempts to capture all three dimensions at once,
Like Sonic
while
3D
keeping
Blast.
any edges that are parallel in 3D space parallel
Qbert.
in 2D space
Qbert.
as well. This is very useful in certain kinds of video games, where we need to be able to have the world continue forever, while using the exact same pieces or tiles to represent the world regardless of whether that section is close to us or farther away. Isometric refers to a very specific formula and uses very specific angular relationships between the x, y, and z dimensions of space, but it belongs to a more general category referred to as axonometric projection. Of course, there are other approaches to projection, but you get the point. Our focus here is on perspective projection, which is built around a single core concept: foreshortening. We'll explore that in the next video.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Oh, Mustard, have you not had your pills this, like, entire time? Like, since you, like, mentioned it, like, a few weeks ago? Has it been that long? Hey, Farrah. Hey, Robert. Projection is bad. Projection is good when it comes to this. Hey, Lucy. I mean, I've just always been, like... I used to draw all the time as a kid, and like I had loads of like my dad would draw because my dad he did a lot of artwork on some like trading cards and stuff like that, and my dad had a comic book shop, and I don't know, I've always just been surrounded by like comics and art and stuff like that, and I like cartoon characters, and I like all that stuff, you know. And so I used to draw a lot as a kid, but I mean really just like, you know, like sketches and stuff like that. And yeah, it's just been something I've always wanted to kind of like formally learn a bit more. I do some spray painting and stuff like that, but like, I can do, like, a cool little doodle if I want to, but I haven't really progressed in any way for, I don't know, maybe, like, 15 years. Do you know what I mean? And I'm like, oh, man, I want to actually kind of, like, learn some stuff, and, like, level it up. And I actually, let me bring this up, man. A dude who I think it's like totally possible because, like, you know, like the stuff like More Stars said about like, I don't want to look at the specific tweet, I want to look at the whole thing, man. You know, like the stuff More Stars said about you know, how long it took him to improve. And I was thinking about running today because I did a 31 kilometer run this morning, and I got a new personal record. It's pretty fast, to be honest. Back in February was when I like started running again, like after my back surgery, and I went on like a 5 kilometer run with some friends, and I went really slow, and I quit at 4 kilometers, and that was like February. That was like 8 months ago. And now I'm ready to do, like, I've been doing races, I've been doing half marathons, I've been doing, you know, trail races in the mountains and stuff. And like today when I was running, I was thinking about how much crazy I'd gotten in such a short amount of time because I've been practicing so much. And my buddy Czar on Twitter, he showed me this. This is him saying December versus now. So this is a 10-month difference of like going from something like this, which is, you know, the type of stuff that like I'm sort of doing at the moment, to stuff like this, which is just like crazy good. So like seeing people's like stories and like their dedication, stuff like this, and thinking of my own perspective as well, like the stuff I've been dedicated to, like my running or whatever. It just makes it motivating to kind of like grind this out and like do this every day and whatever to kind of get to that position. I think it'll be really cool. I'd talk about some of the stuff that like my dad's drew, but it would just dox myself. And honestly, there's already enough information about me to kind of basically pinpoint every sort of fact in my life out there. You paid 300 for the visit and 280 for the pills. Oh my god. Sounds like 600 total. Dude. I mean, yeah, but at least, like, it's for your health, you know, your health's, like, at the end of the day, like, how you feel and all that sort of stuff. It's more important than, you know, like, the money tokens, but, like, oh my god. It's still very expensive, isn't it, for your health?
Because we only have 2 dimensions represented on our piece of paper by default, by looking at the actual lengths and distances represented on the page, we can only really discern the physical length or measurement of things that sit perpendicular to the angle in which we're looking. Meaning, if we've got a box that is aligned such that we're looking straight on at one of its faces, we can judge its height and width, but we have no way of judging its depth. Foreshortening arms us with the tools to help the viewer understand the other lengths, of which some components exist in the depth of the scene. To put it simply, a piece of paper can only give us so much direct information. We use foreshortening to help provide extra info so the viewer's brain can better and more completely understand what it's looking at. The primary manifestation of foreshortening is something you're probably familiar with to some extent. As things get farther away from us, they appear smaller. They are of course not actually physically getting any smaller, but they appear that way to our eyes. Another manifestation of foreshortening is the degree shift that we talked about in regards to the ellipse section of this lesson. Where given a cylinder, the farther end will appear wider than the end closer to the viewer. This actually applies to all forms, even boxes, where the far end will appear proportionally wider. That said, in this video we're primarily going to focus on the shift in scale, the tendency for things to get smaller as they move farther away. So if you're unsure of what the degree shift is, I recommend that you visit the ellipses video after watching this one. I'll include a link in the description, but since you're at this video, I do expect you've watched it already. Now our gut instinct here is to think about this scale shift as it applies to whole objects. This student, for example, is getting farther from us, and so it's getting smaller.
I like this guy.
It's applying to the entirety of the student. Eventually he'll get so far away and so small to our perception that he'll collapse into nothing but the tiniest little speck, which eventually our eyes will no longer be able to see. We refer to this, the point that is infinitely far away from us, as a vanishing point, one of the building blocks of technical plotted perspective. We can also think about this in terms of distances between sets of objects. If we clone our student and have all of them run away from us, the distances between them shrink, just as the students themselves do. But the student is a complicated object, made up of tons of smaller forms, and a lot of stress-induced illnesses. We can think of him as though he's made up of a series of dots, and as he moves farther away from us, the distance between those dots shrinks. Instead of thinking about foreshortening as though it impacts entire objects at once, we can think about how it applies to space in general. The spaces between the parts of a single object, and the space between different objects in the scene. Let's set aside our complicated student and go back to talking about the problem in a much simpler form by looking at boxes once again. Like our student, a box is made up of a series of points, or vertices, all connected to one another by edges in 3D space. The box simply allows us to see this in a much simpler state, while still demonstrating all 3 dimensions of space. Each box features 3 sets of edges, a set that goes across the width dimension, one that goes across the height dimension, and one that goes across the depth. If you look at the box from an angle like this, it might not be entirely clear which corresponds to the width and which corresponds to the depth. But honestly, it doesn't really matter that much, as we're just labeling them for the sake of explanation. Each set contains 4 edges, all of whom are parallel to one another in 3D space. This is where terminology becomes important, so I'm going to try my best to be consistent. When I'm talking about 3D space, I'm going to refer to them as edges. When I'm talking about their projection onto a flat, 2-dimensional page, I'm going to describe them as lines. Because we're talking about how to draw 3-dimensional objects, we are going to be constantly jumping back and forth between talking about the 3D space we're trying to represent and the 2D space in which we're representing it. As each of these edges extend farther back in 3D space, moving away from the viewer, the distances between the lines that represent them on the page get smaller, until finally they converge to a single point. That point, which we identified earlier, is the vanishing point for this set of edges. The vanishing points for edges that run parallel to the ground plane will be situated on the horizon line. Although you can certainly have vanishing points that aren't on the horizon, it just means that the edges it governs are not parallel to the flat ground like these vertical height edges. Keep this in mind. As a set of edges rotates in 3D space, the vanishing point that they converge to will move around. We do not control this vanishing point directly, but it is their orientation in 3 dimensions that allows us to identify the correct location for the edge's vanishing point. It's worth calling out the fact that as those edges rotate, the vanishing point will not move at a consistent rate along the horizon line. This can actually get kind of confusing, so don't worry too much about it if it doesn't make sense right away, but the further out to either side of your image, and even beyond it, your vanishing point goes, the more it's actually going to move for every degree the edges rotate. This is something we'll look at a bit more closely in the next video.
I think I'm going to want some maths of that, to be honest. I'm going to keep going here, man. I know he's breaking this up into like... I feel I don't want to just like look at that. Yeah, man, I'm happy you've got it, but I'm yeah, it's annoying that's the situation, man. It's so frustrating when support systems and stuff like that don't exist, you know? Oh, whoops. Oh, dude, this is getting
Before we
wild.
get to this one, I want to make one thing crystal clear. What we're discussing in the next few minutes, that is, why as a box rotates at a consistent rate, its vanishing points will slide more rapidly or more slowly depending on where they are on the horizon, is not something you're likely to understand immediately. You're not expected to. I'm adding this disclaimer during my editing because I realize that while I do mention this, it's after the explanation. Many of you may find yourselves confused and may rewind to the beginning to rewatch that section over and over without ever having reached the part that clarifies that you're not meant to fully grasp it right now. This is going to be something you will encounter multiple times throughout this course. Concepts may be explained that you will not fully understand immediately. Some students find that to be quite frustrating. It's quite normal to want to understand everything in its entirety before attempting to apply it, in order to avoid mistakes. But as I explain at length in Lesson 0, this is how the course is designed. Do not try and bend the course to the way you would like it to be. Follow it as it is designed, and accept that concepts will be understood gradually by doing the exercises. By making attempts, by making mistakes, and by allowing those mistakes to help others understand what we do and don't quite grasp so they can fill in the gaps. What we're covering here is honest.
Yeah, I'm trying to reframe right, because I go around saying I want to learn because I do want to learn, right? And I don't want to just be repeating the same sort of like tasks over and over and over. I want to be doing different things. I want to be doing different tasks, solving different problems, you know, using different skills. So I'm trying to reframe that whenever I, you know, hit a quote-unquote failure, when I hit something I'm not able to do easily, I'm trying to reframe that in my head like, oh, cool, like, opportunity. Like, oh, cool, this is a moment where I get to struggle and learn something, so I'm better at this, and then better at all the sort of interconnected activities and skills related to what I'm learning here. So I'm trying to reframe of like, of not getting sort of frustrated when I can't do something and being like, oh, this is like, we've reached the meat here, you know, like this is the important
It's less
stuff.
significant than most of the things we cover. It's really just an explanation as to how the consistent rotation of a 3D form results in an inconsistent displacement of its vanishing points. It's worth going through, but completely unnecessary in order to apply. In fact, much of what I explain here, I only came to understand in the last couple of years by reflecting on the concepts that I was teaching students and through conversation with other instructors, namely Aline Fouard, an instructor of perspective and human anatomy at l'École supérieure de réalisation audiovisuelle in Paris, France. That was a good while ago, so they might not actually remember. Anyway, long story short, I didn't even understand this as a student or as a working illustrator and concept artist, so don't get hung up on it if you don't either. And with that, let's get started. Normally, we look at perspective scenes from the eyes of a hypothetical viewer, or out of a camera lens looking out onto the scene. But we can actually make a bit more sense of this concept of rotation and how it impacts the vanishing point's positions by looking at everything from above. So here we can see the viewer and the box they're looking out at. Let's add in a horizon. Remember, the horizon line is meant to represent an infinite distance away from the viewer. That means that every point along the horizon is an equally infinite distance away. Given that all these distances are equal when measured from the viewer's location, rather than representing the horizon line with a straight line, we can represent it as a circle with the viewer at its center.
Yeah, okay, I can vibe with that.
Now,
I can vibe with that. This is actually the same way we consider gravitational potential, because we're describing it as like a tendency from the infinite. Like we're thinking of something like that as like we're thinking of that as being like the work that would have to be done, right? The work that would have to be done per unit mass. Yeah, the work that would have to be done per unit mass to bring a object from infinity to that specific point of the gravitational field. And so we consider that to be like a radii of infinite in the same way here. So that's just kind of like Newtonian fundamentals.
For this last piece, you'll have to bear with me. Here we have the box represented as a rectilinear square or rectangle, meaning that their lines are set at 90 degrees to one another. While normally this is correct, we're not trying to draw the box itself from a top-down view, but rather we're trying to understand what the viewer is seeing, and more importantly, why. In order to do this, we introduce the vanishing points as seen by the viewer, which will result in some deformation from our current abstracted top-down point of view. So if you recall, I explained that as our given sets of edges turn in space, or in this case, as the whole box and its two horizontal sets of edges rotate, the vanishing points that are already off to the side will slide further along the horizon line, whereas those closer to the middle will slide less. When we view the horizon line as a circle, however, all of the vanishing points move by a consistent amount, regardless of where along it they are. Thus, this inconsistency can be understood as the result of the flattening of the horizon. Before we can illustrate this, we first need to correct our diagram a bit, as the relative distance between the viewer and the object and the circular horizon are incorrect. Between the viewer and the object, we have a non-infinite distance.
Yeah.
But between the object and the
So
horizon
it's
line,
basically here.
there is an infinite distance.
It's like here.
That is, because the horizon is infinitely far away. This means, and those of you who are not mathematically inclined will just have to trust me on this one, that we can effectively say that at scale,
Yeah.
the distance between the viewer and the object
It's
is
non-existent.
basically zero
It's
in the
non-existent.
face of the full distance between the object and the horizon.
Yeah.
This allows us to combine the positioning of our object and viewer, which is necessary to demonstrate how the vanishing points behave as the horizon is flattened. Getting back to that,
Dude, I'm already
given
there.
these
This is
vanishing
fine.
points on the circular representation of the
This is
horizon,
fine.
if we want to understand where they'd fall on the flattened horizon, we can simply draw a line from the viewer through the given vanishing point and see where it intersects with the flat horizon line. Note as well what happens as these vanishing points slide along the circle, and how it impacts their positioning along the flat horizon line that the...
Yeah, this is fine, man. Yeah. So we're doing the same sort of thing that you would do to anything where you're trying to like model a higher order plane onto a lower order plane. So this is the same thing, type of thing that, like, I mean, he's doing it for 3D to 2D, but this is the type of thing we do in like 4D to 3D, or even like 4D to 2D, when you start wanting to model, like, I don't know, something like gravitation wells from like space-time warping, you know, when you start thinking that being like, that's being the fourth axis, and these being the three axes together.
viewer sees. Along the top, you'll see the same from the viewer's eyes. As the box rotates, the right vanishing point accelerates as it moves away from the center of the frame, until this line extension runs perfectly parallel to the flat horizon line and perpendicular to the viewer's angle of sight. We consider this vanishing point to be at infinity, and any lines that are meant to converge to it will remain parallel when drawn on the page, as the viewer now sees. Conversely, as the vanishing point on the left moves towards the center of the frame, it slides along the horizon more slowly.
And they're like perfectly converged, basically.
Now that you're all properly confused, here's the kicker.
Dude, I got it. It's cool.
Very little of what I just painstakingly explained
I got it.
actually matters. Why? Perfect perspective is not better, nor is it more useful than good enough perspective. It is, however, more cumbersome, and worrying about it will get in the way. For our purposes through this course, where we're not worried about things being perfectly correct, but rather close enough, we needn't worry about exactly how much the vanishing point should move. All that matters to us here is that the more our edges rotate, and the closer they get to being perpendicular to the viewer's angle of sight, the further out to the side that vanishing point will move. And as an extension of that, when our edges are fully and perfectly perpendicular to the viewer's angle of sight, the vanishing point will be infinitely far, resulting in the lines that represent those edges on the page never converging and remaining entirely parallel, both in 3D space as edges and in 2D space as lines. This is how we get to something you may have heard of if you've studied anything about perspective before: 2-point and 1-point perspective. Just remember, there's no such thing as 0-point perspective. So you should never be drawing with all your vanishing points at infinity if your intention is to replicate what humans see. And just to get in before someone calls out, well, isn't isometric or axonometric projection 0-point perspective? No, they're not. They do not fall under perspective projection and do not share its goals. They exist in their own category and cannot be referred to as perspective in the context of projection. This confusion usually arises from people using perspective as a synonym for projection, which is incorrect and very misleading. Just like the distinction between edges and lines, as well as shapes, which for our purposes refer only to two-dimensional elements like circles and squares, and forms, which refer to three-dimensional elements like spheres and boxes, the wording we use to describe what we're doing is important. Moving on, let's explore how this concept of vanishing points at infinity results in the 1, 2, and 3-point perspective grids people talk about when discussing perspective. It is not saying that an entire scene can be represented with just 1, 2, or 3 vanishing points, because that would only allow for 3 sets of edges with 3 specific orientations.
Yeah.
Rather, it's a way to talk about 3-dimensional space as a grid. This kind of grid can be used as a reference, If you know what your major axes are, you can estimate how an arbitrary diagonal would be laid across if your spatial reasoning skills are developed far enough. It also happens that a lot of human structures adhere quite closely to grids. There will always be deviations, but if you think about a building, they're pretty boxy. That's how we end up with these kinds of simplifications.
Box boy.
What I want you to keep in mind most of all, however, is that regardless of whether you're talking about a 2-point perspective grid, where one set of edges, usually the vertical one, is drawn with parallel lines that do not converge, or about a 1-point perspective grid, where 2 sets of edges, usually the width and height, are represented with parallel lines on the page. Each of these are still dealing with 3 distinct sets of edges, and therefore they're always dealing with 3 individual vanishing points. It's just that some of them are at infinity, but they still exist. We still need to be thinking and talking about them as they exist, whereas the terminology of 1-point and 2-point perspective tends to make us ignore them, which I find really hurts the development of our underlying spatial reasoning skills. Of course, far be it from me to strike such common phrasing from the student artist's dictionary, so I'll settle for doing my best to clarify what they really mean. All of this can certainly be kind of confusing, and a lot of people will be left asking, well, when should I use 1 or 2-point perspective instead of 3-point? There are 2 answers to this, with one of them simply being that the number of vanishing points you keep in mind, whether 1, 3, or 862, depends on the number of sets of parallel edges in the object or scene you're drawing, but that's not a terribly useful answer. There is, however, a rule of thumb that I can offer to help you make a bit more sense of what 1-point, 2-point, and 3-point perspective really tell us about the space in which we're working. It comes down to thinking about a single box in the world and considering how it's oriented in relation to the viewer. If the box is rotated such that we're looking straight into one of its faces, or close enough to it, then you can think of this box as being drawn in 1-point perspective, with the other 2 vanishing points being at infinity. If the box is rotated such that we're looking straight into one of its edges, or again, close enough to it, then you can think of the box as though it's drawn in 2-point perspective, with one of its vanishing points being at infinity. And lastly, if the box is rotated such that it's really more one of its corners that's pointing at the viewer, then it's drawn at 3-point perspective. All of its vanishing points are concrete as opposed to infinite, and all of your sets of parallel edges will converge when drawn as lines on the page, rather than remaining parallel in 2D space as well. This is easy enough to apply to a single box, but if you're trying to think about what kind of grid to use for an entire scene, the box you're thinking of for this rule of thumb formula would be set at the orientation that is most common across the objects in your scene, or a rough average of the objects in your scene. I can't really say this enough. These are just simplifications, and while they can help us out towards the beginning, it is important that you get used to the idea of thinking less in terms of specific point perspective grids, and more about the idea that there's a vanishing point, whether concrete or infinite, for every set of parallel edges in the scene, and that a vanishing point goes to infinity when it is oriented perpendicularly to the viewer's angle of sight.
Yeah, I just want to start thinking of that just completely initially. Oh, that dude again, that screaming dude again. I'm gonna keep watching. I know I've been watching 40 minutes, but I want to get to the task, do you know what I mean? Rather than just... Alright. Is that what it... That's what I just watched, right? Oh my lord. Let's find out. Let's find out, let's find out, let's find out. Yeah, that's what I just watched. Okay. So... Exercise 7. The worst thing about perspective is that you can't draw boxes forever, and at a certain point it looks good when you feel it out. But I can't do it that well at all. Maybe you want to practice too, dude. Get in on the box exercises, you know? Oh, look at this, why I quit.
Assuming you're following along with the course as instructed in Lesson 0, That is, following along with the written material on the website, watching the videos
Mostly.
when they come up, and stopping to do exercises when you come across the homework sections, you'll have recently completed reading through the box's material from Lesson 1,
I guess.
which talks about vanishing points and the behavior of parallel edges in 3D space when drawn on a flat page.
Read it a little bit.
In this video, we're going to go over the first exercise of the boxes section. We call this exercise plotted perspective.
That's kind of find the plotted perspective exercise. Well, table of contents. Boxes. Plotted perspective exercise. Okay.
And its purpose is basically to give students a chance to use vanishing points in practical examples.
Okay.
We'll be doing that by drawing a series of boxes in a standard 2-point perspective grid, defining each box with a single vertical edge, then using it in combination with the vanishing points to solve the puzzle and complete the 3D form. Mechanically, the exercise is very simple, but it's not
Hey,
at
Val, hope
all
you're doing
uncommon
okay,
for
man.
students to be a little overwhelmed by it at first, as it involves keeping track of a lot of lines.
Yeah.
Just take a deep breath
Lost.
and focus on following the instructions to the letter. There's no artistry here, no creativity, just following the steps.
Okay.
So, let's get started.
Setting up your page.
Our first step is to split up the page into separate frames. As opposed to doing one instance of the exercise per page, this will allow us to get more out of a single sheet. We'll be separating the page into 3 distinct rectangular frames. For these frames, as well as for every other line throughout this exercise, we will be using a ruler. We want to be focusing entirely on the use of vanishing points and don't want anything else to potentially distract us. As you draw your frames, take your time. It's easy for students to take this step for granted, thinking that because they're using a ruler, they can rush through it quickly in order to save time. They overlook the fact that you still need to consider where you want your line to go, whether it's oriented correctly. When it comes to ensuring the horizontals and verticals are perpendicular to one another on the page, a transparent ruler with a grid like the one I'm using here can help a lot. But no matter whether you're using a ruler like this, a metal or wooden one, or the edge of a book, you're still going to have to take your time. Now, for our purposes in this exercise, we don't really need to worry about whether or not our 3 frames are the same height. So you can just eyeball the dimensions here, but just try and make sure that the horizontals are all parallel to one another and perpendicular to the verticals. I did a pretty poor job of estimating my dimensions, but hopefully you'll do better. Place a horizontal line parallel to the horizontals of your frame into the frame. It doesn't need to be dead center, leaving it a little higher or lower is fine. But don't push it too far to the top or bottom. When placing your vanishing points, put them far out to the sides. We'll be placing our boxes between these vanishing points, but we don't want to get too close as this will cause some more extreme distortion. Normally our vanishing points would actually sit outside the frame itself, so whatever is illustrated doesn't get too distorted, but for the purposes of this exercise, we're going to keep them inside. Keep in mind that if you do place your boxes too close to a vanishing point, it will look really wacky, but that's not incorrect. What's happening is that each vanishing point governs a different set of edges in 3D space, and these 2 sets of edges sit at 90 degrees to one another, as would the 2 horizontal sets of edges that help to make up any box. That means that the distance between the vanishing points constitutes a 90-degree slice of the viewer's field of view. So that's right here. The frame itself, which can also be referred to as the picture plane, encompasses the entirety of the picture that the viewer can see. Humans have a field of view of about 130 degrees, but only about 60 degrees of that can be seen with both eyes together.
Okay.
Anything outside of that falls into our periphery, where things actually get pretty distorted, but our brains do correct for. So if we were mimicking
I didn't know
human
those
vision,
numbers.
our picture plane would actually only be about 2/3 of the space between the two vanishing points. So as you can see here, the width of the picture plane is 2/3 of the total width between the vanishing points, with the distance between the vanishing points representing a 90-degree slice. So if the viewer was here, it's 90 degrees out. And then the picture plane represents a 60-degree slice, which is more what the actual human viewer would be able to see in focus before things start getting wacky and distorted in their peripheral.
No podemos permitir que el comercio de armas con los actores del conflicto en la Franja de Gaza continúe.
The reason I say that the distortion that comes from getting too close to your vanishing points in a two-point perspective arrangement like this is not wrong is because there are absolutely situations where we alter the field of view to achieve certain effects. Camera lenses, for instance, can come in a variety of FOVs, though this is usually expressed in terms of the focal length of the lens in millimeters. Then there's also other animals who might have entirely different functional fields of view. Anyway, getting back on track with the exercise, place your vanishing points on the horizon line on either side of the frame.
Yeah, I did. This is kind of wonky. It's kind of freaking wonky.
If you recall from the lecture portion, when we draw a box in two-point perspective, it's because one of its edges is fairly central within the overall silhouette of the form. This gives us two sets of horizontal edges that converge towards their own concrete vanishing points and one vertical set that is governed by an infinite vanishing point. In other words, they run parallel to one another on the page, going straight up and down. By defining one of the vertical edges, which we do by simply drawing a vertical line on the page, we define the height of our box. As long as your line is vertical on the page, there's no right or wrong here. We're not trying to find the correct height of this box.
I feel like I need to correct this line a little bit. Okay.
We're choosing what the height should be. Here's where our vanishing points actually kick in and we start solving the puzzle. Okay. We have the top and bottom corners of the box that are closest to the viewer.
Yeah.
And we know that the other two sets of edges each converges towards one of our vanishing points. So, by drawing lines from each vanishing point to
So is this like... Yeah, I got this. We got this. Or are you just playing some games? Just hanging out over there? Dude, my body, after that 31-kilometer run, I feel so freaking tired.
Each corner, we're adding 4 more edges to our box.
I feel so freaking tired.
They're just much longer than they will need to be in the end.
Mm-hmm.
Just like in step 3, where we chose how tall the box would be, here we're going to be deciding the length of the other 2 dimensions.
So just pick,
we will
right?
be doing this by placing the 2 outer vertical edges. Their distance from the vertical edge we drew in step 3 will dictate these lengths. Keep in mind that we are not drawing cubes. These lengths can be whatever you want. We're simply drawing boxes, which, like when comparing rectangles to squares, do not need to maintain the same size across its 3 dimensions. Maintaining these proportional relationships is a much more advanced concept that we won't be discussing until much later into the course.
So I want to get to a point where I can imagine these, right? So I don't have to
Like in step 4, we continue solving the puzzle in exactly the same manner, connecting the vertices of our 3D box as they emerge back to each vanishing.
Okay, so that. Tee a giggle.
Point. At this point, we're missing just one last edge. We draw this by connecting the two backmost corners. I like to first mark out the corners themselves so I don't lose track of what I'm doing before drawing the line itself. If everything was done perfectly and correctly,
With this. And this.
something that most students won't achieve, as we're not robots able to work with perfect precision, then the resulting line will be completely vertical and parallel to the other 3 vertical edges. It's fairly likely that yours, like mine here, will not be so perfect. As we plot our lines between corners and vanishing points, there's a lot of room to be off by very small measures. It may not even be immediately noticeable to you. These little discrepancies accumulate and they show.
Is that not cool? I don't know, is that... I feel that's good, right?
Themselves in the very last step. By drawing through our boxes as though we have X-ray vision, we're able to notice the results of these small issues. This is a good thing. By being made aware of our mistakes, we know what we can continue to work on. This is not anything to feel badly about. It is a perfectly normal thing, and being able to view mistakes as a valuable source of information rather than something to elicit shame is a strength we all develop as part of this process. You've drawn your first box for this frame, but there's plenty more room. Add another 4 to 5 boxes. As you do so, you will find that with every new line added to the composition, things will become less clear and harder to visually parse. You may be more prone to making mistakes on the later boxes for this reason. Rest assured, while giving yourself as much time as you need to work through each step with care and with patience, it will definitely make a difference. But this is also something that gets easier the more you do it. And I'll tell you now, we'll be doing this sort of thing a lot throughout the course, so you'll get plenty of practice. Just don't shy away from it if it gives you a hard time.
Enjoy the
Once
bus
you've
trip
finished
the
up
best
all
you
the
can,
boxes
man.
for a given frame, you can fill in one front face on your boxes with tight hatching if you wish. Do this at the end so you can be sure that you're only adding hatching to the visible portions of the boxes. This use of hatching isn't required, but it can help the result appear a little clearer. If you do choose to put hatching in though, don't rush through it and don't be sloppy. Take your time with each stroke, as any mark you decide is worth including in your work is worth giving the time it demands to be done to the best of your current ability.
Puff! Oh my lord. One fill page contains 3 frames. Okay. Oof, this is gonna get this is gonna get complicated. And he just used the same color pen, but I kind of want to like change my pen color. I don't know if that's fair. Actually, wait a second, dude. I can do this. I can frickin' do this. This isn't as confusing as we're making it out to be. Oh, I can see. Yeah. Ooh. That's rough, right? Dude, how's that happened? That's rough. That is rough, man. Dude, I need to, like, really define these vanishing points, so otherwise I got stuff like that, and that's like freaking horrible. How many did the dude want from me?
Normal thing.
How many did he want
and
from
being
me?
able to view mistakes as a valuable source of information rather than something to elicit shame is a strength we all develop as part of this process.
4 to 5 times. Jeez. So let's put a little tally. So we've done 1, 2. And he wants me to put like 6 on here. That's freaking wild. What do you mean? What do you mean? It's. I understand the Dunning-Kruger effect, but how are you relating that to this? What's so Dunning-Kruger about this, man? It hits, so get ready. What do you mean it hits? Alright. Well, I think, dude, I think it's just more of a matter of, like, my lines aren't perfectly parallel, so I can understand it. I can understand why this is, like there, that line, those 2 points, I did not do this correctly. So this one's actually going to come out funky as hell, man. This one's going to come out funky Kong. This one's going to come out funky Kong as hell, man. Funky Kong mode. Okay, so where are my, that's there and there. This one's way better. This one's way better. This one's way better. Yeah, look at that. This one is way better. Way, 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 way better. DK. Donkey Kong. DK. Donkey Kong. Alright, we're gonna go 5 per frame because more than that, I'm gonna lose my frickin' mind with all these lines. Well, I wonder if that's part of the challenge, you know? Like, I wonder if that's been... Oh! Well, this one's gonna mess up. This one's gonna mess up big time. This one's gonna mess up big time. Do ni na ni na ni na ni na. Dude, what the hell? Oh my god. That's not ideal. Over here. Dude, I'm gonna get lost in these lines. This one's not great, is it? This one's not good at all. I knew that one wouldn't be great. I knew that one wouldn't be great. I knew that one was not going my way. I've got my archive over here, my stack of papers. I'm gonna keep it, man. I'm gonna keep it. I'm gonna keep my little archive of stuff, and then I can like look back on it and whatever, and all that cool jazz, you know? DK, Donkey Kong, DK, Donkey Kong. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. There we go. There we go. Okay. Where are we? We're here. Cool. Only allowed to use rulers for vertical angles in maths. Now he said like something about cross-hatching one of the sides, but I honestly don't have like a frickin' clue what he was talking about there. So maybe I'll go back and watch that again, or maybe there's a Ooh, this one's not going to turn out good. Actually, it's kind of okay. Yeah, that's not too bad. That one's not too bad. Okay, what was he going on about the cross-hatching? One face of each box with cross-hatching. Ah, okay. Yeah. So for example, this one over here. Like, that's the box, right? Like, I've lost my own box. Yeah, that's the box. So... And then there's my black box here. Oh. It's like exactly the type of thing he said not to do. Oh, so I should maybe have not shaded that in because that other box is like in front of it. No, I understand what he like, I shouldn't have shaded this box in because in actuality you can't see that box because this box is so big. And then this box is in front of that box there. Now where's my other, like... Where the hell are my other boxes? I got this blue one here. Oh, and that's a red box. Okay. But that's like behind... this box. Ah, so I'd be able to see all of this box. And then this blue box here, just like some of it. Something like that. But that black one there, I should have like never frickin' done that. But that's kind of okay. All right. I mean, we can see the mistakes kind of staring out a little bit. Let me get I just got a drink, real quick. Oh, it's over there. So I just have to go to the kitchen. But I got some I got a box of juice over here. Okay, so what's the, like, just to kind of look, I'm always looking ahead, you know what I mean? What are the other homeworks I got? So I got 2 pages. 2 pages of this coming up. That looks crazy. That's an upcoming homework. And then that looks freaking crazy. Oh my god. Oh my god, man. We really do have some crazy stuff coming up, don't we? Yeah, I think orange juice is probably my favorite juice, if we're being real. I don't disagree with you. I'm a little bit of a orange juice enjoyer. Being political something, then subject got me outstanding. I'm good with it. When you're close to you, boom, bum, 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 ba-dum, bum, bum, bum. Yeah, so he was doing ones that were like floating in the sky as well. I guess I should do whatever I want, but I guess I should experiment with that concept also. Kind of see what's up. The vanishing points. Rex the dog in the vanishing point. This doesn't make sense, does it? Like, what the hell have I done? This doesn't make sense. Or does it? Oh no, it's just like my extra side's gonna connect like underneath. Huh. Interesting. Interesting. There we go. The box emerges. And it's a little bit not perfect. But he was talking about the good enough principle. You know? When stuff is just like good enough. That's pretty good. You know, that's pretty good enough on the good enough scale of stuff. Oh dude, people are starting to reply to my frickin' post. Dude, I think I'm gonna be drawing for a long time today. I think this is gonna end up being a long ass stream. But I mean, that's cool, whatever. It's Friday. Now, Friday, go wild. Drawaboxes. Go freaking crazy, man. Dude, the party's withdrawing the boxes, you know? That's what they say. They say that the best parties all involve drawing boxes. That's what I heard. On the streets, I was raised on these streets where we draw boxes. And it's like, all we do is we hang out and draw fucking boxes. Oh my lord, that was so bad. Hey, was it? Was it so bad? Wait, what the frick am I doing here? Is that's the last step, right? Or am I just like making stuff up here? Because they cross here, right? And then they also, oh my lord. No, you're being real? You're being frickin' real. Oh my god, that is a catastrophe. That is an absolute catastrophe. Number 2. Oh, grumble, grumble. So, where are we going wrong, you know? I mean, part of going wrong might be the initial frame I've set up. It's kind of goofy. So I think I'm getting slight... Because everything's got a percentage uncertainty right to it. Everything's got an absolute uncertainty due to the, you know, the systematic errors, the human errors, and the random errors. Now, I think the system for this is pretty tight, so I don't believe there really should be systematic errors. No, sorry. I believe the system here is pretty tight, so I don't think there should be random errors. It's not going to be any sort of random variation here, really, if we're being perfectly honest. And the systematic errors? I think so. Because I haven't exactly followed the steps perfectly. Unless I've compromised the system, because if this line and this line and this line and this line and this line aren't perfectly aligned, then the frame that I'm dealing with is kind of intrinsically jacked up from the get-go, but we live and learn. This will definitely be something I can see myself avoiding practicing this. But, ooh, that one turned out pretty good. That one turned out pretty good. But I'm going to try not and avoid practicing these sort of things, because I can already sort of detect the value forward projecting. I know we're not supposed to project here, but I'm sort of forward projecting to how this could be very useful. Okay, this is something I should stop doing, right? Because I'm lining up like these vertices with each other. It's causing confusion. Make these like distinct ass lines, you know. But guys, this process of making your effort public, I would encourage, man. Like, I feel this kind of, you know, I mean, here I'm literally broadcasting it, but I think just like the general sort of like idea of broadcasting my efforts and really helps with a sort of like accountability. It gives me a real nice sort of also way of tracking how much time I'm spending on certain things here and here. This one's slightly out, but they are fairly parallel. You know, it so widens a bit there, but these are fairly parallel. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, let's put it number 5. But I find it really works for my running as well, you know? Like, I use this app called Strava, right? And so whenever I run, my runs get posted on there. It's kind of like Instagram or Twitter, except for runners, you know? So whenever I run, my runs get posted on there. And so all my runner friends, and all of us who are training, you know, we know who's training and who's not training. Because you can just look on Strava, you know. And just having that kind of like, you know, being in the public eye. What the hell did I do there? I did do that line. Okay, I kind of got lost there. I was like, where the hell's my line? But kind of having that like public record and whatever, it at least for me, it really helps me. And I love other people doing the same as well. Like, I think I like seeing people's like work in progresses and efforts and methodologies. I think I enjoy seeing that stuff sometimes more than I do actually seeing their finished product. Well, this one's going to be out. Because I can tell by how frayed the lines are getting here. Like, I don't even know where they frickin' cross over. Well, is it just like on the line? I mean, that kind of feels pointless. Alright. So, this is in front of the blue box. So let's cross hatch him. Then I got that blue box like sitting there, super in front. But some of that, of course, is being blocked by this floating black one. Then I got this red one, which is mostly being blocked by my my big ass blue one. And then I got my blue and my black one are pretty independent of each other. And my black one over here. Cool. Okay, so one more frickin' frame to go. This is crazy, man. This stuff's wild. Stuff is absolutely wild. But we continue, we press on, you know? We do our best to learn, to grow. Alright. Yeah, see, this is like, these are not in line with each other. That's like a frickin' issue. But I guess it's not, right? Like, I guess it's just so it's sort of like consistently in line with itself, then who cares? I think. Well, let's find out. Let's find out, man. It's initially just... Alright, perpendicular. Big ass. Now these are referred to as lines. That line is representing an edge. Because I'm drawing shapes to represent a form. I need to get that artist dictionary on it. I'm going to want to talk about this stuff correctly and fit in with all the people. I want to have artist friends we can talk to, and will talk to me. Oh my lord, this is tiring. This is frickin' tiring, man. Dude, this is like a... Draw something like what, Lucy? What do you mean? What sort of thing? I looked through all the classes and it eventually gets to like animals and all that sort of thing. Oh, a chair and stuff like that. Yeah, I think so. I think so. Because I kind of like looked ahead. And like the classes get into sort of like inorganic objects, so a lot of things like chairs and tables and cars and whatever, and then it moves into animals and stuff like that. But it that stuff's a long... Oh my lord, this one was poor. That goes... That's very far into the future. Very, very far into the future before we get into stuff like that. Because my original line sucked. Because that line and that line are not in line with each other. So if I do that... Oh my god. Yes, that sort of stuff's very, very in the future. Oh, like technical drawing class, yeah. Dude, I'm in that same sort of situation again where like... Oh, I can hear somebody skateboarding outside. What a wonderful sound. Dude, like today, it's been... Dude, today's been a lot. Usually on Fridays, I usually take it easy. But, Today what I've done is... I can bring it up over here, right? I was constructing a bowl this morning. So we've been dealing with shapes all day. So I've been constructing a bowl for the skate park. So we're gonna just put the smooth this out of it and put the skins over it. Right? And the other segments. So I've been building a bowl today. So I mean, this was work. This was work. And the other big thing I was doing today is I did a 31-kilometer run. So I did a 31-kilometer run this morning. I've been building the bowl. And then I've been sat here drawing for 90 minutes now. So, oh my god, it's like, I didn't really plan on today being like this, but there's been a lot going on, you know? There's been a lot going on. It's a little bit of a crazy day, you know? I already feel, because of how frayed it's got over here, that this is gonna be a little bit messed up. Yeah, Juan, we're trying our best over here, you know? We're trying to do what we can. This needs to connect to here. That's a job I'm doing. That's a job I'm doing. So I work, I do a lot of carpentry, and doing stuff for like skate parks or events and stuff like that it's a big part of what I do. So that's how I get the money to buy the pen and the paper. So I'm able to draw. I don't do architectural models. I do... I can bring some up on here sometime. Actually, I can get some examples, right? But I can bring up some of my own... So, I'll work on like models like this stuff for kind of like flow simulations and stuff like that. So this is kind of like one of the jobs that I do. So I'll maybe do like some basic modeling of like rudimentary shapes and stuff like that with something called SolidWorks. And then I can, so that's like the 3D program, right? And then I can use another program called ANSYS to do sort of like fluid analyses of how that structure would behave with, for example, you know, chemicals or airflows or whatever, and kind of stuff like that. So I'm generally sort of like a builder, engineer-y sort of person, and I generally do most things sort of like contract and part-time and stuff at the moment. So I'm sort of just like more and more autonomo, because I like sort of the freedom that gives me, you know? So I can like fit in like all the different things I like to do in my life, sort of around that. And because I find it difficult just to have one boss as well who tells me what to do. Because sometimes I don't want to do what my boss tells me to do. So it's better being my own boss, you know? But yeah, I'm quite often just like learning different things and stuff like that. And trying out different things and how they can fit into what I'm... There's one. You're freaking kidding me. No, there's one. And there's one. Okay. Okay, not too bad. Not too bad. Not too bad. Not like criminally bad there. Yeah, Lucy, it's that sort of life is very, very it can be very, very scary. It can be very, very intense. I know that generally, like you know, like Spain specifically isn't really is one of the more difficult European countries to do that in. But generally, most of the work I do is a lot of the work I do is like is remote stuff, or so it's like I'm not actually directly working for like Spanish companies or things like that. This is gonna get so freaking confusing. Okay, so that's going to there. And that's going to there. Is it? That already went to there. Then what the hell am I doing? Because that's going to here. But it already went to here. Yes, that's going to there. Okay. Oh my lord. And then that's going over here. This one's not going to be good because I lost a lot of lines in the shuffle, in the shake, in the Harlem shake. Okay, so that's it's not too bad, not too bad. It's not too bad. Could be worse. Could be worse. All right, let's put one more on. Let's put one more on, and then I'm gonna draw. And one thing I did actually, and if anyone wants to kind of like get in on this, is oh, that's my my top sort of tweet things. Or did I? Because I'm not logged in on Twitter over here. Yeah, what I did... Lost it. Is here. I said drop references. So if anybody wants to drop a reference over there of either your character or like a random ass character or something you want me to draw. After I finish this last box, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna open those up and I'm going to I'm going to draw whatever stuff's posted there to the sort of best of my ability with the pen and with the paper. So if you want me to do a doodle, drop something there. Ah, that's disgusting. Drop something there and I'll give it a go. I mean, obviously you've got to sort of limit your expectations to what I'm currently capable of on day 11 of trying to learn how to draw. But yeah, I will try it with my 11 days of experience for poops and giggles. Okay, where did these cross over? There. And where else? Oh my god, you kidding? Alright, anyway, let's drop that there. Then this black guy is kind of floating here. Then I got this big blue guy who's behind. And I got the black guy here. And then we got this red guy here. Okay, I'm glad that is over. Oh my lord. Lordy, lordy, lordy. So, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have a little look at some of these dudes who've been dropped here. And we'll have a little doodle, you know? We'll have a frickin' doodle. See what we can do, see what we can knock out. Oh, in theory. Well, not in theory. According to the instructions of the course I am doing, I should really be drawing now for the next oh, it's in the, okay, cool. Add you to the queue of sketches that we're gonna do. Ooh, that's kind of fun. Let's kind of do that. That's kind of fun. Okay. So it's got like kind of the mushroom nose. Cool. It's got the teethies. Yeah, good point, man. Good point, doing little stretches and stuff like that. Good point, dude. Good point, dude. Thank you. Thank you for looking out for me. I need to decide how I'm gonna do these eyes. I might just, yeah, I think we're just gonna do that. I think we're just gonna dot these. Something like that. And then kind of round that in over there. Cool. Something like that. And then we can kind of bring in this hair a little bit. Okay. Bring that there. A little bit of that, a little bit of that. And then I'm gonna do some eyebrows. Maybe. It's kind of not exactly what we're looking for. Knock my frickin' camera, man. Yeah, that's kind of fun. Bring that in like that. Just a little bit of that, and then I want to bring in some longer hair here. Cool. Cool, man. Hey, that felt kind of quick. That felt kind of, you know? All right. Dude, this has got all these like markings and stuff, which I'm not gonna be able to frickin' handle, but whatever, you know. I'll try and sort of enjoy a little bit of fur, if you will. This is a very furry fella. Very, very furry fella. Hello again, Free from the bus. Free from bus world. The kingdom of the bus. Okay, cool. There we go. Bum, 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 bum. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Ba ba da da bum ba da bum. Ba da bum. Ba da ba da da da. Ba ba da ba da ba ba da. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Go. Ooh. Okay. bottom. Hey, oh, there we go. So I think that's the 4 I was given. Cool, 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 cool. Very cool. So we'll put that on Twitter in like a little bit. Let's do a little bit more messing around. A wee bit more messing around, so to speak. Just kind of practice, you know? I might actually, now with my new... Yeah, I'm gonna have to wait for a little bit more box knowledge on it. Because I was wanting to, like, I was thinking, like, oh, now I can, like, whack out another, you know, Minecraft dude. But I was thinking I'm gonna have to learn a little bit more about the perspective before we, like, totally get there. But we can kind of just mess around again. I'm just gonna kind of play around on the paper for a little bit of time. Just sort of see what does or what doesn't arise. Okay, yeah, get something to eat, get something to eat. Food is important. 100% important. Do 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 do. Top gear, top tip. Try to add as much visual context to determine the structure of the face as possible first, and then work off that. Thank you very much for the top tip. Oh, have I been working over here and you haven't been able to see me? Thank you for the top tip. Always appreciate a lovely a lovely tip that is top, you know? Always appreciate a top tip. Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to learn day by day or whatever. This is day 11 of drawing, you know? So we're just trying to sort of mess around and, you know, do what we can. Every day, hopefully, get a little bit better, you know? Yeah, if you send something over, I can try, you know? If you send something over, I can try and draw it. Here's an example, follow the line at the edge of the face doing where the kink line in and out again to get some cheekbone going. Yeah, as I said, I mean, it's all stuff I'm trying to do. It's all stuff I'm trying to take on board. But I mean, very much at the moment, this is the stuff we're working on, you know, like boxes, rudimentary shapes. All this sort of stuff's just messing around for fun, and as we kind of work on it and get better, then, you know, we try and do it. Oh, what do we got? We got another dude. We got another dude! Alright. Some of the sideways V-shape, starting in the middle, dipping in the eye, and finishing at the brow. Yeah, man, as I said, we're trying this stuff, doing the best. We're kind of learning as we go. Honestly, dude, at the moment, the big priority is, like, just trying to make lines that I want to be able to make. So, like, kind of, because you're literally looking at day 11 of somebody trying to draw stuff. So, like, these are all, like, sick things, which I want to consider and stuff, but at the moment, it's very much just sort of focusing on, like, I'd like to make lines on the piece of paper, and I'm trying to get there. Do you know what I mean? So it's like I don't really want to particularly specialize in like one thing, because I'm just really trying to learn like basic ass fundamentals. And once I've got those, which is why I'm doing a course literally about drawing boxes. So once I've sort of got a lot of these fundamentals down, I can start focusing on like, oh, like eyes, you know, frickin', you know, or whatever. But at the moment, it's very much just like trying to make sort of like intentional, deliberate lines, which sort of match what we're trying to do. Ah! Maybe I should. Okay. Yeah, I kind of get the idea. I kind of get the idea. Okay. There we go, man. There we frickin' go.
get a little bit more stuff on this sheet. Just kind of mess around a little bit. A little bit of messing around. A little bit around and messing. Yeah, I mean, honestly, we're not even referring to it at this point. It had some prompts, but, honestly, the prompts now are just like, get good, you know? Get good. Get good at drawing. Dude, it's getting dark as hell in this room, my man. Oh, we learned to draw Iggly Buff the other day, didn't we? So I guess we can chuck on a little Iggly Buff. She's a character in the repertoire. Ugh. So we can check on an Iggly Buff. Cool. Should we put in another Bluey? The people seem to like Bluey, didn't they? Front-facing Bluey. Bluey! Bluey, mate! Cool. We did a gator the other day, didn't we? Okay. I got my, actually. Where the hell did he go? Dude, where'd he go? Because I got my little, colorful, goat. But I don't know where the hell he's gone. That's fine. We'll do we'll use this space over here. We'll put in a little There's not been a chicken. We'll do a chicken up over here. We'll make sure we get a chicken in, because that's kind of it's kind of important, isn't it? Ba-da-bum. That's just my Google Calendar saying you haven't done frickin' yoga today. Let's get a little lamb in over here, though. And we'll get a chicken in. And then I think we'll call it a day. Oh, we're rushing the chicken, man. That's okay. Sometimes the chicken gets rushed. Alright, cool. So, today, output. We did this little drawing sheet here. And we did a bunch of perspective, whatever you want to call them, 2-point perspective exercises. Not bad, man. Today's been crazy, man. Dude, a lot of woodworking. As I said, do I still have the pictures up here? What we frickin' did today. So, like today we did this. We worked on and we built a lot of stuff for the bowl that we're building. So a lot of work on the bowl, and then we then after the bowl, we got ourselves 31 kilometers. You know, new frickin' PR in the 30K. And then we spent 90 minutes on classes and drawing these 2-point perspectives. And then we did this. It's not Novely. I'm in a group chat with you, dude. I know, but you left it. You left the group chat. But yeah, so we've been doing loads of drawing, man. But anyway, it was sweet, man. Thanks for rocking and joining us today, peoples. We got a lot of things done, didn't we? We got a lot of things done. But anyway, I'm gonna go eat. Maybe I'll come back and play a little bit of Fallout. We'll see how we are. I think I'm gonna eat, and I think I'm gonna play like 2 hours of Fortnite or something. Not Fortnite. You've got me saying Fortnite, Novely. Fallout. New Vegas. Alright, so I think I'm gonna go eat, and then I might come back and play a little bit of New Vegas. But yeah, dude, today's been crazy. I didn't think today was gonna be so like but it was. Like stuff's happened, man. But anyway, yeah, no, super. Thank you for hanging out. As I said, like doing this stuff like with people, and people hanging out, and people like being supportive and whatever. It is. Oh, I need to put the laundry out. Okay, I'm gonna go eat and record a laundry vlog. That's what I'm gonna do. Okay, yeah, Mostar, don't come back. Yeah, if you're gonna get spoilers, then don't come back. Yeah, that's not. Yeah, avoid your spoilers, man. Preserve your playthrough. You know, preserve your playthrough. We don't want you getting spoiled. But yeah, I need to cook. I need to hang up this laundry. So I'll do a laundry vlog, because that's what we do when we hang out the laundry. And then we'll see what time it is. But maybe I'll come and play like an hour or two of Fallout New Vegas. But yeah, thanks again, everybody. Peace out. I hope you all have a good time. Have a good food time. Yeah, good food time is the aim. But bye-bye, everybody. Peace.